Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Great Day Houston. As many of you know, October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. That word awareness is so important with this cause because so many people keep this issue behind closed doors. After surviving multiple violent relationships, including a near-death experience that left her blind, Sabrina Greenlee has turned her pain into purpose in her book, Grant Me Vision, A Journey of Family, Faith, and Forgiveness. She shares her rough start being born to teenage parents with limited emotional skills. She also shares her determination to become the parent she so desperately needed as a child. She's raised 4 confident children, including former Houston Texans NFL player DeAndre Hopkins.
What gives me the fuel to want to help is my mom, who is blind from a domestic violence situation, and her drive that she has every day, waking up to continue life, not making any excuses, but still doing what she loves to do, and that's helping other people.
Every time he makes a touchdown, DeAndre honors his mom in the crowd with the football. Sabrina joins us this morning with the hope that someone else in a violent relationship can get out and see the value in themselves. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Oh man, absolutely. You were such a great testimony to, life can get tough, but you can be tougher. I want to start with a quote that you had in another interview. You said, "If it had to happen all over again, I wouldn't change a thing because the woman you're looking at now is somebody that people look up to, somebody that's changed lives." That says a lot because, hopelessness and fear and hate can block your blessings.
Yes, and I think it's very important that everything that we go through, it's a testament of first your resilience, your character, and your faith. But when you know that you can overcome on the other side, take all of that and literally make it a mission to be better and do better. So had that not happened, the pain, the surgeries, all of the trauma that I went through, I wouldn't have the resilience and be the woman I am today to stand up and say, you know what, look at me, like I made it.
Yeah, there's somebody watching right now who's in the thick of it, who's thinking they don't have that resilience, that they can't get to the other side. I want to back up and talk about how this all started for you. Mm-hmm. Everybody's story is unique, but some people can see some familiar themes here. You were born to teenage parents in South Carolina. You're the oldest of 3, and your parents, of course, not unexpectedly, lacked the emotional skills and obviously the finances to be the parents that they needed to be.
Yes, I come from my mom and father who they were big on just support. So there was no emotional attachment there. No, I love you, or that you can make it, or be something.
Just getting the food on the table was enough for them.
That was what I come from. And of course, that's all they knew. And their parents before them, just be the suppliers and put food on the table and send you to school, but not ask you, hey, have you done your homework? And so they did not have the emotional capacity to
the nurturing piece
to see, a young girl that was struggling or trying to find herself.
But it goes beyond that. You saw their relationship spiral out of control. They physically and verbally abused each other. And then at one point, your dad actually held a gun to your mom's head in front of you and your siblings.
Yes, we unexpectedly woke up in the middle of the night. Everybody get in the car. We had no idea what was going on. And all I knew was my father, is holding a gun to my mom's head because my mom was dealing with another guy. And of course, you're talking about trauma, Deborah, and of course my dad ended up in jail, and my mom, we ended up at my grandmama's house in a little 1 room where we all had to share a little 5x5 room. It was just a lot.
Yeah. You were also told that you were the least of the favorite. You're the protector of your 2 brothers, but you were also oftentimes told that you didn't amount to anything.
And that was my mom. Earlier on, I knew that I was the least favorite of the 2. Mm-hmm. And of course, they admitted it later after counseling and therapy and a lot of conversations, because I wanted to know, what was it about me? And they just was like, you know what? We were just drawn to the boys because they were boys, even though you were the oldest and you were the most loving and caring, but because they were boys. And my father, of course, he was very, athletic, and so he saw, he saw himself in them.
sometimes we're loving and caring because we're seeking to be loved and cared for back, right? Which makes us a vulnerable child. Validation, which makes us, and I understand a lot of that on my personal journey, but it makes you vulnerable.
But I never stopped. I kept looking for validation, all in the wrong places, of course, right? And that's in Grant Me Vision. It was important for me to outline all of these bad relationships, good and bad, because what I was even in the memoir, you think that just because someone is hitting you in the physical aspect of it, the abuse, right? But then I jumped in another relationship and it was mental abuse.
Yeah.
So
oftentimes hear women say emotional and psychological abuse is almost worse than the physical abuse. I'm going to back up to when you were 10 years old, and they always say if there's at least one adult who steps up for you, then a child can thrive in much bigger ways. But you were 10 years old, sexually assaulted by somebody that all of us think we should be able to trust.
Yes, a family pastor, which was a family friend. And he saw me vulnerable one day. My mom had just left, and he decided to come in there, and of course he sexually assaulted me. You're talking about a triple trauma effect of just a domino effect of a young girl spiraling out of control. And also having Grant Me Vision, that day changed everything. I learned how to deceive, manipulate, because why?
Survival techniques.
No one believed me.
Yeah.
And so that was really, really tough.
Yeah, because you're dealing with abandonment and betrayal. As they say, a child who's sexually abused has a long road, to go. However, if when they tell somebody the person has enough to say this is something that happened to you, does not define you, should not have happened to you, and you're a champion for that child, the outcome can be a little bit different emotionally. But you didn't have that. And the mother, the other person you go to trust, who's saying, I don't believe you. All right, so you talk about those survival techniques that you had, and it switched in you. You learned to lie, manipulate, deceive. And another thing that happened in terms of trauma, your baby brother was killed by a drunk driver.
Yes. I was 14 years old, and I outlined that I held him until he took his last breath. Wow. And he was only 12, because we were like, as my mom called it, doorsteps. We was 12, 13, and 14. I was 14 when my brother passed away, and he was killed by a drunk driver, which was my mom's first cousin, was driving the car. So, and that was the turn of that was my mom, getting on drugs and leaving a 14-year-old girl to fend for herself.
It's interesting when you say fend for yourself. No one would have known from the outside looking in. You were a cheerleader, you ran track, you were the homecoming queen. You did all of those things, but internally, so many things were not going right for you. And so, but what kids see growing up is oftentimes a blueprint for their own life. And you had relationships early on, 14.
Well, life goes on. It doesn't stop, but there's no counseling. There's no one to sit you down and say, you know what, let me know what you're feeling. And so I just continued on with life. And all of that builds up. I truly believe what goes in is eventually going to come out. And it came out in the form of me connecting, to people that I should not have been connected to, right?
14 years old, in a relationship with an 18-year-old, and you thought some attention was better than none at all for you. You knew it was wrong, but you didn't know how to get out. So you're married by 18, had your first child to someone, when you have that child, one of the things that happens is I sometimes say, when you have a child, you have a chance to become the parent you wanted, or you repeat the parent that you had. And also, when you have that child, it's someone to love who loves you back.
It was important for me to show her something different, but I didn't have the means or the tools. I was just so young, and I was divorced by my abuser by the time I was 20 years old, living in the projects with 2 kids at that point by the time I was 20. Totally trying to figure it out, just lost.
Yeah, because you had a second child. That person was also abusive, eventually left. Now 0 for 2 in that. But your thoughts and ideas of what normal was still skewed by what you had experienced. Your next relationship, 21, you met Steve Hopkins. You had your third child, DeAndre, of course, but it was the first time you weren't physically abused. And so you saw that relationship different, even though it was just a different form.
Yeah, well, and I still struggle with that today, trying to figure out Was it emotional abuse? Was it mental abuse?
Yeah.
But he was a drug dealer, and I was a part of it. And so I'm looking at the dynamics differently because he's never physically touched me.
Yeah.
But here it is, I'm jeopardizing my life by,
And your children's lives.
and my children's lives by, selling drugs and being a part of, what he called this, this dynasty of we're going to be together forever. Kind of like, I title it Bonnie and Clyde.
Yeah.
Because that's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
And so, just looking at it differently, but I still sometimes like, what type of abuse was this? But you know what, at the end, when the police is like kicking down my door and I got guns to the back of my head, it's trauma.
Yeah, all over
So
again.
much, yeah.
He ended up dying in a car accident, and so there's another level of trauma again. Now you've got your kids, and you're like, what am I going to do? You did what it took, including becoming a stripper, but you also made a decision that you were going to break the generational curse or generational trauma.
Yes.
Is there a moment, I'm sure there's a series of moments, but what was the moment that you said, this will not happen for my children?
I think the moment was when I was suicidal at my lowest, and I was like, what else do I do? I have nothing left in me to give, and I have to do something. I did not want to lose my children to the streets,
Right.
or to society, or to their friends. I needed to be an influence. I didn't know how to do that or what that was going to look like, but I knew I had to get up every day and put an effort into them.
Yeah, and you did, because you got 4 respectable, successful children. But it's interesting. You decided, no, I don't want to die. I want to live. But you almost died. There was an attack that happened.
Yes.
You were what, about 29 years old at this time? 30?
I was 31.
31? Okay. What happened with that?
So, of course, by this time, I have attached myself to many men. And once again, I attached myself to another man. I was only in this relationship about 3.5, I'll say 4 months. And it was toxic from the beginning. All the red flags was there, the lies, the deceit. But you know what? This was my man, and I was his woman. And once again, I was going to ride it out. And woke up one day on July 20th, and he had taken my car, and I decided I'm going to go get my car. Being hot-headed and furious, I'm going to go find him. He calls me to a place, and I go there. And I have no idea that it's another woman's house. I'm going there because he's telling me this is where you need to come. This is where I am. Come get your car. And I was on the phone with my cousin back and forth, like, hey, meet me here, but I'm still going there. And a young lady comes out, and I know now that she was in her kitchen mixing up a concoction, boiling it actually, Deborah, of liquid red devil eye mixed with Clorox. And she was boiling this concoction, and she comes out about 10, 15 minutes after I've been there, and she calls my name, and she dashes just concoction onto me. I instantly fall to the ground. The skin is coming off my face, my back, my neck. I'm dying. I can't catch my breath, so I eventually just lay there, just waiting on.
He left you to die.
He left me to die. Well, he actually, not in that moment, he picked me up, and he puts me in the car. So I think he kind of panics, like, oh my God. He takes me to a gas station. About 5 minutes after he get me to the gas attendant and they get me to the water fountain, he leaves me there to die.
Wow. So during that healing process, because now you're blind, you battle depression, you have those other thoughts of suicide
Severely.
again, yeah. But then there's this thing that happens, and when somebody's in it, it's hard to see. It is hard to see. That power of forgiveness,
Oh,
and
my
starting
goodness.
with forgiving yourself, forgiving your parents, forgiving everything that led you to that point can be extremely freeing and gives you a chance to push the reset button, and this time you're the only one who determines where you get to go and what you get to do.
Oh, absolutely. That was one of the best things that I ever could have done. I think about it now, and I'm just like, what if I had not chosen to forgive? And what that looked like for me was just calling out my attacker's name, eventually normalizing her. I had to find some human, like I had to find something normal about it, because I'm like, this is just not normal.
Yeah.
You just don't wake up every day and have this in you that you want to hurt somebody to that degree. And so what I began to do was I began to call her name. I began to pray for her. and see the similarities, you know. Her initial started with SG, so did mine. Just any little thing. I was grasping on anything at this point.
Yeah, what makes that person get to that? Yeah.
Right. And what I came to realize is that I was so broken and she was so broken that could have been me.
Yeah.
That was because she got sentenced to 20 years in jail.
Yeah.
And then I thought, you know what? I could have been in jail and she could be sitting here blind, you know, because
you speak to such an important point that I think oftentimes we see what happened, but if we don't really dig into the why, we can stop things early on if we really know the why. And I think we don't do enough of that in society. And again,
I think also too, why was I there?
Yeah.
Taking full accountability of what is going on in my life, that I am going to this place, or that I have attached myself to these people or this man so early on. So really, I think forgiveness first starts with taking accountability of looking at what it is, because we can point fingers and it's real easy, and you'll never get to the process of forgiveness pointing fingers at other people. Really look at yourself. Like, what is it about me? Where was I at that time in my life, and why did this happen to me?
Yeah. You founded your nonprofit in Houston, Smooth, speaking mentally, outwardly, opening opportunities toward healing.
Yes, I love my organization. It's one of the best rewarding things that I've ever done, and that is just going out there, really getting in the trenches and connecting with women, like-minded women who have been through trauma and abuse. I think it's very important that I continue to show them that there is life after death.
Yeah.
That's very important.
We shared in the green room that I was in a tough relationship in college that was physically abusive and mentally abusive.
Yes.
And when people are trying to tell you, they're like, hey, you're better than that. Hey, this is not a good guy for you. You won't listen. What do you say to somebody right now who's trying to help somebody?
I say continue talking to them. Be nosy. Let them know that you see them. Because what I truly believe is that you have to meet someone where they are. Yeah. You can't make someone get out, but be there. Be that first person to be there when they're ready. Yeah. They have to be fully committed to getting out of an abusive relationship.
You almost can't care more for them than they care about themselves.
Unfortunately, you cannot. You cannot make them get out. But also too, just let them know, and just always drop the nuggets of saying, I'm here. Yeah. A lot of women think they're by themselves because they've been controlled and isolated. Yeah. And so just continually letting them know that you care and that you're there is very important.
Oh, Sabrina, I am in love with you. I love you. Oh. I love this book. And this book is not only for people dealing with domestic violence, but people who are going through a tough time. And we all will go through a tough time at some point. This book shows you that there's light at the end of that tough time if you allow that light to come in.
Oh, absolutely.
So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Deborah. Thank you.
All right. Sabrina Greenlee's memoir, Grant Me Vision, A Journey of Family, Faith, and Forgiveness is available now wherever books are sold. And if you or someone you know is experiencing violence, Hawk, or the Houston Area Women's Center, has a 24/7 hotline. That number is 713-528-2121. Again, 713-528-2121. Highly trained advocates can provide you with information and resources to assess danger, make a safety plan, find shelter, and get services like legal help. We'll be right back.